people, how you doing? I'm having a damn good day. Welcome back to the channel. And as you can see from the thumbnail, we will be breaking down Didier Deschamps' 4-3-3 attack formation in the game FC24, trying to replicate and recreate what we see France try and implement in the game. So, if you can, please smash that like button. I know you've got that. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. That would be fan-damn-tastic. We are growing at a significantly amazing, fantastic rate on the channel. So, mad love, mad appreciation. Let's hop on right into it. We'll start off with Mbappe up front, with Kolo Muani and Dembele forming a formidable, fluid front three. In behind, we've got Griezmann, Tchouameni, and Rabiot. Then we've got Theo Hernandez, Upamecano, Konate, and then Koundé. And then between the sticks, we've got Mainan. Apparently that's how you pronounce it. I was always pronouncing it Mainan? Magnan? I don't know. Anyway, point being is, fantastic goalkeeper nonetheless. We've got Thuram, Koeman, Fofana, Camavinga, Samba, Pavard, and Todibo, who, with the way things are going with Manchester United, he could be joining him in January, but who knows. Anyway, we've got Nkunku, Diaby, Giroud, Kamara, Areola, Disasi, Fofana, and then Veretout in the reserves. With the formation going forward, it's just a 4-3-3 attack. That means that, we're not playing with the DM in this situation, we're playing with the centre attacking midfielder. That's why it's called the 4-3-3 attack. And I haven't really, altered any positions. As you see it is how you get it, select it, and that's more or less how it's going to be. So it's one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two central midfielders, one attacking midfielder, one striker, and then two wingers. Now, with the Didier Deschamps tactics, it's a very different style and approach that do try and implement. And the defensive style is, sometimes they might look to try and be very aggressive, pressing the life out of the smaller teams, the teams that aren't as good, or they'll try and show a bit more respect to the opposition if it's an England or potentially a Spain, teams who are very dominant on the ball and have the ability to bypass their press and more or less try and exploit them. So I've gone with a balanced approach for their defensive style because I just think you want to be able to potentially sit off in certain moments, keep your shape, keep your structure, or potentially you want to try and look to implement an aggressive style, an aggressive press, trying to win the ball nice and high up the field. So that's why I've gone with a defensive style set to balance. As for the team width though, very nice and compact at the back. They can definitely hang on to a 1-0 lead. That's what more or less has gotten them through to the most successful part in French history, you could say. I mean, this has been one of the most dominant teams since, from 2016 or so, all the way through, or maybe even 2015, all the way through until now. France have been consistent with their presence in the top rankings in the world, and that is solely built on an array of defensive talent that they do have. So keeping the team width set to 25 is essential, keeping it nice and compact at the back, making sure that there's nothing that's going to be passed through the lines, breaking down their defensive structure that they look to try and implement. So a nice 25 width does look to try and replicate a realistic French approach. As for the depth though, it is set to a mid-block at times, trying to not expose either the goalkeeper or the centre-backs, although your centre-backs in this situation are very quick with their recovery runs, so you don't really mind playing a higher line. But France, they don't look to overexert it too much, try and push that high line up even further. They look to rather just keep things compact at the back, hold on to a potential 1-0 lead, and get the win nonetheless. As for the build-up play, I've gone with a balanced approach because you do want to try and implement that fast break, fluid approach with the interchanging positions. Mbappe as the striker, Kolo Muani as the left or the right wing, and you want to try and implement that, or potentially you want to try and be a bit more methodical and try and break down the opposition with the slow interchanging passes, waiting patiently with the ball, and that's why a balanced approach does get the best out of them. I mean, France have also gone with the long ball over the top. Either it's a Tchouameni or potentially a Griezmann if he does drop very, very deep, that long ball to quickly trigger the transition into the counter-attack. So it's a whole array of different things that you will be looking to implement with this set of tactics going forward. It does help if you are trying to potentially pick out a Kylian Mbappe for that quick transition attack. It does help with the long ball or potentially the fast-paced build-up. But in other moments, if you want to try and get the best out of a Griezmann or your midfield or potentially your wing-backs or your full-backs, sorry, in this case it's your full-backs, getting involved in the play, you want to try and have a slower-paced build-up to just get the best out of those players as well. Now, as for the chance creation, I've set it to forward runs, and this does help implement a very fluid forward line. Sometimes Kolo Muani, like I said, he'll drift into the left-hand position, opening up space down the centre for the likes of Kylian Mbappe to try and exploit and work his way through. We have seen, even at PSG, the fluidity of that front three is very nice, and we will see that for France going forward. Hopefully in the Euros coming up, we'll see more pace and power, and it's exciting football, and you want to have those forwards making those runs in behind, trying to stretch the opposition, trying to open up space for the likes of a Griezmann, a Tchouameni, a Camavinga, for example, of course. You want to have them creating space and having them create the ability for others to flourish. That's what I'm trying to say here. Anyway, as for the width, it's a nice widespread 80. Like I said, the forwards will be pressing the opposition's backline at times, trying to stretch them vertically, but you also want to try and stretch them on a horizontal plane as well, opening up space between the lines, either for them to make the runs, or potentially for your midfield or your fullbacks to try and invert or exploit the opposition with. As for players in the box, I've set it to a very high 8. Sometimes, especially with Theo Hernandez, you want him developing and making those runs into the box, but at the same time, you want your forwards, your front three, making those narrow runs into the centre of the park, trying to either latch onto crosses or work interchanging plays in and around the area and then attacking the final third, and potentially even an Antoine Griezmann. You do want him in and around their attacking third, trying to either create, facilitate, or potentially score goals of his own. Now, as for corners and free kicks, as for always, it is set to 4. Now, for the instructions, we'll start off with my Nan. He's set to come for crosses and have a balanced approach for saving outside of the box. I think he does have the ability on the ball. He can pick out a pass from distance, and of course, you can still do that, especially if you are looking to try and trigger the counter attack with a long ball out wide to an Mbappe or a running on Dembele or so on. But at the same time, you are playing a mid-block, and your centre-backs, they do have a very good amount of recovery pace, so you don't really need your goalkeeper sprinting off of his line to try and recover the ball and then circulate back into possession. I would say a more of a balanced approach does suit what France and the goalkeeping situation at France they try and look to implement. I think with Hugo Lloris a few years ago, he's trying to take risks and be a bit more involved in the Volder play. Whereas with I'm messing up his name. But point is, I think he's looking just to try and be the best shot-stopping goalkeeper he can be, and then anything over and above that, he's going to, be very simple and calm with it. So balanced crosses, I think, best suits him, as well as comfort crosses. He is going to try and claim those aerial balls left, right, and centre, try and win the ball back and then circulate it back into either the defence or potentially in the midfield with his saving on crosses. Now, speaking of your defence, we've got Upamecano and Konate, which potentially will change. I mean, Saliba, he should be in here, but apparently EAFC hasn't updated. But the defensive presence that France have, the talent that they have is incredible. I mean, Upamecano, I know last year in the Champions League wasn't the best, but he is still a fantastic player, fantastic centre-back, great speed on the ball. The passing ability is quite good. Konate as well for Liverpool, fantastic. The RB Leipzig duo from a few years ago. But, I mean, then you can chuck in Saliba and all this amazing talent. I mean, Pavard as well can be a centre-back at times. And then, of course, you've got Koundé out wide. So basically, these guys are going to be set to their basis of instructions. But then you've got Koundé out wide, who is a centre-back, but can play as a right-back. And we have seen this role for him, either for Barcelona or for France. And I was very much against him playing as a right-back, but I think, he has developed quite well. And his instructions are set to having a balanced attack for his support, or his attacking runs, I should say. Sometimes looking to advance ball high up the field, other times looking just to stay back, be a bit more defensively solid, creating almost a back three at times with the left wing back or the left full back diving on forward, making sure he's being a bit more involved in the attacking runs. And then as for his run type, I've set it to invert. You want it to invert either into the midfield, linking up play quite nicely, or potentially, like I said, inverting into the back line, creating that formidable back three, as well as I've set him to step up, being a bit more aggressive on this right-hand side, imposing himself a bit more, sometimes getting a bit higher up the field and taking charge of the defensive side of things. And then, like I said, Theo Hernandez, he's set to join the attack, have a normal set of interception skills, and then his run type, I've set it to mix. You want him to either invert into the midfield. He does make those long, mazy runs inside, creating space for either Mbappe on the inside or the outside with his attacking runs. So it does allow for Mbappe to either cut inside and have somebody making that overlapping run, or potentially have Mbappe hug the touchline, create space on the wider side of things, and then have an inverting fullback making those deep runs for the potential pass. And then as for his defensive position, I've set it to stick to position, as you don't really want him to try and be too imposing, because he is doing a lot of the attacking outlets down this left-hand side. Then moving on into our midfield, we've got Tchouameni and Rabiot. We'll start off with Tchouameni. He is going to, even though he's a central midfielder, he's going to take up more of a defensive presence, more of the defensive midfielder presence, even though, like I say, he's set to being a central midfielder. So he will stay back while attacking, look to try and shield and break up the opposition offensive outlets at times, trying just be the thorn in their side, make sure that it's not easy passing through the lines, or it's not easy playing through the French midfield, and he is very, very good at doing so. As for his support on crosses, it is set to stay on the edge of the box, trying to facilitate on the edge of the area, as well as pop shots off from that wider range, or just outside the box, getting those shots off. I mean, what was it against England in the World Cup? Absolute screamer from distance, just popped it off, and wow, fantastic. So you want him in those attacking areas if he does get forward a bit more. As for his interceptions, it's set to normal. He is more or less going to be helped by the likes of Rabiot, but you don't really want to have him set to too aggressive, because that does leave him out of position more times than not, and you do need him to be, like I said, the defensive layer protecting the back four at times. As for his defensive position though, I have set it to cover the centre. You want him to be able to just patrol that middle of the park area, making sure that things are ticking over quite nicely, as well as for his positioning freedom, stick to position. You don't want him to pop up in little pockets of space or drifting out wide. Centre of the park, run the game from the midfield, be the Toni Kroos with more legs potentially, and make sure things are ticking over. Now, as for his midfield counterpart, Rabiot, a very balanced approach for him, very much the box to box, but the only change I have made to him is he needs to be able to drift wide. And what this does is it helps with the defensive presence of trying to fill in for the likes of Kylian Mbappe. Because Mbappe, you don't really want him tracking back, you want him to try and be that out there ball at times, and that's where Rabiot will look to more or less be a bit more involved, either on the attacking side of things or the defensive side of things, drifting out wide, picking up the runner from that wider area, or potentially collecting the ball from Theo Hernandez, providing a bit more support for him, and then potentially getting it to the likes of your superstar and Kylian Mbappe. So yes, he has got everything set to his base set of instructions, except for the positioning freedom. You want him to be able to drift into that wide left area, either helping out on the defensive side of things, or potentially the offensive side of things. Now, moving slightly higher up the field to Antoine Griezmann, a man who has not missed a game for France. I might be mistaken here, but I think it's for 7 years. That is absolutely incredible if you ask me, fantastic. But basically, his defensive support is set to come back on defense, dropping deeper, trying to either support the build-up play or potentially just getting on the ball and then trying to trigger those fast-paced counter-attacks. He does have that nice long-range pass on him to try and hit the men in transition. Otherwise, it's going to be Kolo Muani or Dembele or Koeman potentially. I know Mbappe will be on the field more times than not, but you do want him to be a bit more involved in the build-up play of the offense, or like I said, potentially triggering those fast-paced counter-attacks. His support on crosses, I have set to balance. You want him helping the build-up play in and around the final third, or potentially getting into the box and attacking things for himself. As for his positioning freedom, you want him to have a bit more of a freer role. It does fit in with the fluidity of this front four, or this front four system, interchanging positions here, now and then, making sure that he is popping up in the little pockets of space that are created with the crazy movements up front. And then as for his interceptions, I have it set to normal. Now, with the wingers, Dembele and Mbappe, very similar roles, but with 1 or 2 slight tweaks to try and get the best out of them. But as for Dembele, he's said to have a basic defensive support, sometimes tracking back and helping the likes of Koundé, other times not looking to do so much, trying to just be a bit more of an out there ball, just like Mbappe. As for his chance creation, I would say to a balanced width. He will look to try and hug the touchline more times than not, creating the width down the right-hand side, because Koundé won't always look to get forward. But you also want him to have a bit more of a variety to his attacks, sometimes drifting inside, playing as a striker, or taking a more of a central role, being a bit more involved in the build-up play, and that's why I've set it to a balanced width, because, like I say, cut inside, pop-off shots, or potentially hugging the touchline, making sure he's creating the width and crossing situations from that right-hand side. As for his support runs, it goes without saying, you want him to be able to push the offensive backline, getting him behind, trying to exploit them with his pace, and of course his skill moves, fantastic. So that's why I've set it to having a get in behind approach. And then for his interceptions, I've set it to normal, as well as his support crosses, making those arcing runs into the back post for those crosses. And then we've got Mbappe on the left-hand side. He's set to stay forward. Like I say, he's not going to look to track back. He's going to look to be the out there ball more times than not. Of course, he is the captain now. But very similar to Dembele, he's set to have a balance with sometimes looking to the touchline, other times looking to come inside and create either chances for himself or for others. And then getting in behind is essential. Mbappe's pace is extraordinary, especially in EAFC 24, as well as his interceptions, as well as the support on crosses is set to the same as Dembele. And then finally, we've got Kolo Muani, set to having a drift wide approach. Like I say, he's going to try and vacate the central role for either an Mbappe or a Dembele to try and, fulfill and make those central runs at times, playing as a striker, or potentially dragging his man out of position, like I say, creating little pockets of space for a Griezmann, or maybe one of your wings to try and operate in. As for his attacking runs, though, I have it set to a mixed attack, sometimes looking to get him behind, and that will be more times than not with the forward runs set to be on for this team right here, or potentially having a bit more holder play involved with how he's going to play as that centre forward at times. But it does also change for Olivier Giroud, which we will go over right now. His interceptions, he's going to try and need a one-man press at times, trying to press the back line of the goalkeeper, try and hurry them up a little bit. And then his defensive support set to come back on defence. Like I say, with the drift wide, this will also try and pull a man out of position and open up space for others. So if you do rotate the team, and the only real changes I can see you making for the players and so on is Olivier Giroud coming into the team. I think if you swap out Thuram for potential Kolo Muani, the roles don't really change that much. You want Thuram to more or less try and fulfill what Kolo Muani can do. And I think they are very similar in terms of their physicality as well as their pace and everything like that. But with Olivier Giroud, of course, he's not the fastest of players, so we have gone with a very different approach for the striker role for France. He will be set to having a support run set to balance, so sometimes looking to drift slightly wider, open up space still, but he will also look to be a bit more central, attacking those crosses into the box for him, as well as his attacking runs are set to be a target man. He's going to be the guy who backs into the opposition, ball to feet, links up play very, very well with the midfield as well as his wingers. Normal interceptions will be set to be on for him, as well as the defensive support will be set to balance, sometimes dropping off the backline, other times looking just to be a bit more of an out there ball, linking up with Mbappe, potentially for fast breaks. He's not the fastest of players, so don't try and, run the length of the field with Olivier Giroud. He will probably be tackled and made to look like an idiot, but nonetheless, he will try and, be a bit more of an out there ball, hold up play, and then link it with either an Mbappe, Dembele, Kolo Muani, whoever's on the field with him, he'll try and link up the play very well with them. So yes, my people, that is my version of Didier Deschamps' 4-3-3 attack formation in the game FC24. If you have enjoyed this, please smash that like button. For the rest of this week at least, we will be doing a bit more of this international tactics going forward. If you have also not seen it yet, please check it out. Obviously, if you are at this point in the video, thank you so much. But if you haven't seen the career mode, we have started a West Bromwich Albion career mode. 2 episodes in, 2 more episodes coming on the weekend. So, mad love if you can support me on that. But most importantly, I hope you guys have a damn great day. I'm out.